Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well. It is currently 4:20 my time. Nice. So yeah, hope everybody's doing good. This is going to be my final block for Retrothon 24. I'm not going to be doing one game for you all. I'm not going to be doing two games for you all. I'm not even going to be doing three games for you all. I'm going to be doing 8 in a row. That's right. So yeah. But anyway, we're going to be starting off with the most chill. Yeah, I know Manic Ascendant, but I couldn't just. I don't know. It's a marathon run. I didn't feel like I could just be like blaze it or whatever. Then again, I guess I just said it, so too late now. Okay. Anyhow, I'm gonna be doing 8 games in a row for you all. But first, we'll start with Shadowgate 64, the most chill of the three. Let's go ahead and get right into it in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. So, Shadowgate 64. Basically a point-and-click adventure game, minus the pointing and the clicking. Kind of done in a first-person sort of perspective. Well, set in a medieval kind of setting. For those of you who are familiar with the franchise, this is definitely my personal favorite in the franchise, but that's also kind of a nostalgia goggles talking. Okay. This game doesn't really have a lot of tech outside of a few subtle things. I'll point some of those out as we get to them. There is one skip that I'm not going to be going for. I never go for it during marathon runs. It's very risky. This in general is a very risky marathon game, despite it not looking like it. Because there is no save function in this game, or at least no sort of auto save or continue function. If you die, that's it. The run is just over. So we are going to be making a couple safety saves out just to facilitate for any unfortunate mishaps. But like every good 64 game, starts off with a nice 1-minute cutscene of us getting thrown in jail. So we are playing as a character named Dale Cottonwood, and basically being thrown in the prison of Castle Shadowgate. The very first thing we do is we're going to be talking to this guy in this cell over here, his Agar. Now, Agar is a very important character. We'll be actually coming back to free him later. But starting off immediately, talk to Agar, and the prison keeper, Colin, brings us some, and we get the distinct honor of grossest sentence, probably on the 64, after we eat. I'm going to let it stay on screen for half a moment because it's just absolutely gag on the greasy meat. Anyway, after we eat the meat, left behind is a bone. Taking that bone, puzzle right over here, escape the dungeon. Basically, we're going to move this straw aside, and we're going to use the bone to pick our way into this. And we're actually going to say no here to try to open the lid. We'll just get an additional text box there saying, oh, I can't open it. I need to find a way to open it. Down into these sewers we go. That is correct, Abraxas. Also, I noticed Brando in here. One of the very few members of the Shadowgate community. Welcome in. Running a week. Welcome in. Toad. Sayaka, that is. How's everybody doing tonight? Ready for some chill runs. I'm not looking to go 2 balls to the wall. Looking to just get through them. Have a good time. Go fast. Anyway, the very first thing we did coming into the suit, got an iron bar, which we're going to use to knock this over. We are actually going to be making use of the iron bar a little bit later. That there's Lucas. Now, there is a skip associated with Lucas, but that we're not going to be doing. Extremely risky. Called Lucas Skip. Good old creative name. Come in here, we're going to pick up this pickaxe. Going to be having a couple of you throughout the run. Now, It's worth mentioning that this game has the sort of old school FPS controls that are pretty common on the 64, and that you move with the C buttons, turn control stick. As such, there's some pretty interesting little movement quirks. So Abraxas, you asked about the Kickstarter for Beyond Shadowgate. I'm not actually in the Kickstarter, but I did recently start a speedrun leaderboard for the demo, which saw some quite a bit of action in its first. Got the demo down to already under 2 minutes. I was quite happy with everybody. I was like, dang, we going kind of ham. Anyway, we use the pickaxe to climb the wall, and then we're going to use the pickaxe again to open this hole and go into the first dungeon or tower. Those of you who shoot and subtitle, this is Trials of the Four Towers. Well, this is the first tower. Tower of Disciples. Now, we're going to be coming back to this tower several times throughout the course for a few different things, and I'll detail those as we come. But on our first visit here, we're going to be essentially, quote-unquote, beating it. The very first thing we got to do here, go straight across the hallway, and we're going to grab a fairy sculpture, room across us. And this room is going to be very important later. We're going to be revisiting this room here 4 times throughout the course. The lexicon in this game says it can't decide if it wants sculpture or statue. It's like you see a sculpture, you pick up the statue, pick it up, it's like, oh, you got sculpture. I'm like, is it a sculpture? Statue? I mean, I guess in theory those two are the same thing. They are synonyms, but you speedrun a game enough, you start to nitpick. Anyway, then we're gonna come over here and we're gonna pick the statue up. And we're going to turn around, go up into the top floor. But first, we're going to talk to the guy. This is Lackmere. I have colloquially decided to call this guy Crackmere. I just think he's basically the Kaborgabora game. The big owl from Ocarina of Time. He's just going to pop in every so often, interrupt the run, and be annoying. Give us some text you have to mash through. A bona fide classic. Alright, so now we're going to come up here, and we got a few items to get. In this first room here, we got a cool little strafe strat here. Liquid Sunset. This is a very interesting item. Get it for a puzzle a little bit later. It's just quicker to grab it now, rather than, come all the way back. But the item has an interesting effect if you use it outside of its intended use. I'm going to do that a little bit later. We get to a larger loading zone and show off what it does. Fairly entertaining for those who have never. Place the fairy sculpture. Place the elf statue. So it's worth mentioning that there are quite a few red herring items in this game, meaning items that you can pick up that we don't really need. There's also a lot of books, parchments, and documents laying around that detail how to solve a lot of the puzzles that you're seeing me solve. Obviously, this is a speedrun, and it's not required to pick those up to beat the game, so we're not going to be picking up any of them. So we come into this room here, grab the pixie flute, and at this point, we're already done with the first tower. The first 2 towers kind of zoom right by, and so do the last 2. Honestly, the bulk of this run is spent in the middle section. Oh my goodness, why did I go the wrong way? To sort of prepare for the last 2. Anyway, at this point, we are leaving this dungeon. Up here, and we rope. And then we use the pixie flute. And what the pixie flute does is it shrinks us down. Unfortunately, we can't just use it anywhere. It'd be pretty cool if you could. After we get through here, we grow big. Now we are in the cemetery of Castle Shadowgate. Lovely little place, honestly. We're going to be revisiting this area once a little bit later as well. Yeah, everything's quite rusty, this game. Everything also looks a little bit red. It's worth mentioning this game is extremely dark, so I do use a little bit of a brightness filter, and I turn the gamma up slightly to make it a bit more visually seeable. So if things look a little redder than what they might, like especially the browns, that's my apologies, but trust me, it looks better that way. Anyway, coming into the basement of this church here, grabbing this golden key. But we're gonna be needing quite a bit later. It's just grab it right now by a hit or miss. Maybe not even that, honestly. We're gonna grab this crowbar. Go right back upstairs. We're gonna come around this piece. Grab the dragon tear. A lovely item. Very useful item. And we're gonna climb up this ladder. Then use the crowbar on this nail right here. Oh, that was weird. Whatever. Okay, then we're going on to the roof of the church. And before we move up here, I am going to drop a quick safety save. Fall in one of these holes, you die. And those of you who weren't here right at the start, die, the run is... Like, rip run, it's done. Unless you've made a save. No continue function. So, I am going to be dropping a few safety saves throughout the course of the run. So we can pick right back up if I happen to fall or something. Anyway, the very first... We're now in the second dungeon, the Tower of Lackmere. Or Crackmere, as we called him earlier. The very first thing is we open the barrel and pour dragon tears. We're not going to do anything with it yet beyond that. A vessel of some sort to get the liquid out. But it's quicker to just do that now because the dragon tears are the first item in our inventory. Coming downstairs, in a Crackmere. One of the runners of this game, 4FR, likes to point out that his arms look like eels, kind of sticking out of his cloak, and honestly, yeah, I agree. Oh, this game murders you too on a whim, pretty often. Anyway, I hope you like this area. We're gonna be seeing it like 5 times. And we're gonna go downstairs. Rusty door. In a WD-40, we're gonna get some oil on this. Allows it to actually open. I'm gonna come in here. We're gonna grab this crest off of this. That's one of the easiest items to mess up grabbing. It's just in a very awkward position, and the sort of position you need to have it on screen, a little bit finicky. So anyway, after we grab the star crest, we are going back up. Before we do, we're gonna make a pit stop in this. 2 required items that rusty key, very easy item to miss. Especially on a casual play. Kind of hard to see. And the ornate mug. Going to be the vessel we get the water out of that barrel from earlier. When I come into the next room, I'm going to go ahead and use Liquid Sunset so you all can see the unintended function that it does. Because it's quite entertaining. Check this out. Drink Liquid Sunset, you get drunk. Yeah, that weird swirly effect that's going on, that is not me. That's the game. Drunk. Fortunately, after you go through a loading zone, it goes away. But that's a good loading zone to show it off because, you know, we're in it for a moment and you can... Somebody coming into here. Mug. Up some of the water and dragon tear. We're gonna go into this room. gonna use our special water. Put out this magic fire. Awesome. Gonna use the star crest we got from before. Divot. Opens a door in the basement. Right back down. Those of you who are worried that this is our last trip through, don't worry. We have to come all the way back up the stairs again. Get to see these rooms one more time after this. Our grand total have 4 visits. That's true, Brando. First tower is like really safe. Well, you can technically die before that by falling into the water, but that's a little harder to do with falling into the holes on the. This room here, we got a little bit of a sort of pick a direction kind of puzzle. You already know the correct order, of course, because you know. Before we can do that, Crackmere pops up and says, "Oh, you come this far, traveler, but will you go slightly further, traveler?" Or like, yeah, I'm gonna. So this puzzle here is quite simple. Leftmost statue, right, left. Take the left statue here. And we're just about done with Tower of Lackmere. We're going to be coming into the thickest section of it. But before we're finished with Tower of Lackmere, we got one more little puzzle to solve. Well, kind of 2. First things first, we're going to forge a key. Now, the game intends you to put the nail, that I pried up with the crowbar earlier into this to forge this. But you can use a variety of a few different metal objects. For a long time, the speedrun used the pickaxe. But I discovered that there's a slightly faster route if we keep the pickaxe. So I've started using the iron bar that we get in the sewers. And when we come into this, grab this elixir. Over here. Up on Blackmere's bed, I suppose. Mix a little red, primary color action, create a compound color. Instead of secondary color. I'm not an artist. Well, a visual artist. Scripted scene where we look around and we're like, hey, there's stuff on this. Look at this little red spot. And we put the key that we just forged into a hole in the ceiling. Abstract kind of concept, I suppose. Come into this room and pick up all 3 rings, and they do all 3 have some sort of function. The only one we actually need to be the red ring, or the ring of the. And then, you know, Lackmere pops up and is like, oh, there's a bad guy, and the bad guy is trying to do bad guys. So here's our villain. Come out here. His name is Belzar. He has one of the best sound bites on later. Love Belzar in the Shadowgate. Their homie. Good stuff, though. Those of you who would be interested in learning this speedrun or any of the Shadowgate, recently a Shadowgate server inaugurated long back. Small community, very tight-knit, but growing. Nice people. Highly recommend. So anyway, after that cutscene, Blackmere's like, oh, we gotta stop the villain. Now we get to leave the dungeon. That's manually. have to just walk out of the entire dungeon. But we are officially now done. Tower of Blackmere, with the exception of... Is my mic acting up? I can pause for a moment and take a quick gander. What's going on? I'll tell you what, if you can still hear me at the moment. What happened? Oh, I went to go. I'll take a quick look at it when we get to the next section where I can just be a bit more hands-off. Oh, it's fine for some people? That's good. We're going to drop one more safety save here. Fall into one of these holes, you die. Ah, okay, I see. I'll just turn the noise gate off. So anyway, coming downstairs here. And we're going to open this casket. Everybody say hello to Jezebel. We're going to equip the Ring of the Dead. You can talk to Jezebel. Yeah, I'll turn off the noise gate when we get to... There's a section of quite a bit of text coming up. I'll turn it off after that. Anyway, after we talk to her, she gives us her pendant. Then we come downstairs here and we use the rusty key to unlock this door. This actually leads back into the sewers, which is kind of interesting. And we're going to come up to this door here and use the rusty key to unlock it as well. And we are actually back in the first tower at the moment. Gotta come in here and talk to this guy. This guy explains that his granddaughter, who is unfortunately dead, he wants to be reunited with her spirit. And he tells us that this key may help us. It is a key to the cemetery. And he also tells us to take her slipper. Loved her favorite slippers. Said that if we find her other slipper and, you know, where her spirit is at, that we may be able to help put her spirit to rest. And that is something that we do need to do. We're naturally grabbing that stuff. Coming through here, we're going to take a brief pause here and grab the pendant. If you have the Ring of the Dead equipped, you can't talk to living characters, which is, you know, kind of weird. But we do have to go talk to some living characters. In particular, in this next room, the Troubadour. This is the Thieves' Den. Very important area. We're going to be coming back here later as well to do some stuff. But first, coming into this room here, and we are talking to the Troubadour. Now, the Troubadour is going to sing 3 songs for us, and it is required to listen to all 3 so he can give us a flower. But this is also when I'm going to fix my mic. That should be better. You may be able to, you know, hear me breathe now occasionally, but that should be quite a bit better. We're here for about 2 minutes, by the way, watching this guy play his harp. So strap in. I guess technically that's not a harp, that is a lyre. It's also worth mentioning that the songs he's singing are solutions to a couple of different puzzles that are around the true proper town of Castle Shadowgate. And we're going to be spending the next fairly large chunk of the run in this section of the game. And then, honestly, the run kind of just zooms by to the end after we're done with this section. It's just sort of like Dungeon 3, Dungeon 4, game over. Ah, same thing. I'm not sure what it would be then. I don't have any other filter on. I can take a closer look at it, but it would require me to pause. So, you know, I can use my mouse and such. Anyway, after we talk to the troubadour and get the flower, we gotta go do some other stuff around town. Our first mission is we need to come in here and we gotta climb down this ladder. Now, it's very easy to die here. If you fall into this little ravine, you die. So, you know, that's no bueno. Oh, you were commenting on the harp. Okay, cool. Just making sure. All right, sick. Anyway, we give the ancient coin to this guy, which is a coin we picked up way earlier in the game. Also, look at his face. Hideous. Not to shame the poor dude, but they kind of, like, place the textures incorrectly on his face. So I am going to play this a little bit safer than what I would in a true serious attempt. You can cut the corners there a little bit closer, but, you know, marathon run. Don't want to fall, don't want to die. Anyway, we have to re-equip the Ring of the Dead because if you remember a few moments ago, we were trying to find the spirit of that guy's granddaughter. And we're going to go do that now. She kind of fits perfectly in this little loop that we take through the town. She's over here in this little courtyard. Everybody say hello to Caitlin. Everybody say bye, Caitlin. We will see her one more time very briefly. Alright, and now we get one of the 2 instances in the game of RNG. We're going to be putting on Jezebel's pendant and going into the Rusty Sword, which is sort of the tavern / inn, if you will. And this guy in here is going to quiz us about Jezebel. He's going to notice we're wearing her pendant. He was a friend of Jezebel's in life, and he's going to be like, hey, did you rob her grave? Like, this is really sus. First question he's going to ask us is always set in stone. We say no, because he asks if we are a grave robber. And then he's going to ask us a series of 3 questions, and they are random. What was the name of Saul's friend? That is Lucas. What was Saul hoping to find? Golden gems. Fortnite. There we go. So he can ask a total of 5 different questions. He's only going to ask 3, but there are 5 that are in the rotation. There is one other instance later in the game where we have a similar sort of situation where we got to, you know, we get asked some questions and they're random. It's a lot more complex than that instance as well. After that, we're going to talk to this lady here. I forget her name. She is the sister of Agar, the guy at the very beginning of the run that was in the cell next to us. She gives us his magic orb and tells us, hey, you need to free my brother Agar. Obviously, yes, we are going to go free Agar. That is on our to-do list. In fact, all of the things we are doing right now, every little piece of, you know, whatever that we've done in the town, has been essentially just to free Agar. But anyway, we're going to use the cemetery key that the little girl's grandfather gave us. And we're going to come up to this grave here. And we're going to, you know, pour some liquor on it. Then we're going to equip the Ring of the Dead. And we're going to talk to this ghost. This ghost is going to tell us an incantation that we're going to need a little bit later to use a specific object and, you know, do a magic spell with it. We don't even have the object yet, but it's quicker to stop by here now while we're here. And we couldn't do that earlier because we did not have the Dragon Tears, which is worth mentioning. Then we're coming back into the main cemetery, and here's one of the only skips in the run. We'll see if I get it. This is called Grave Skip. I'll explain it after I attempt it. All right, we got it. It's not that hard. Basically, if you walk too close to this grave, this guy's ghost will talk to you, and then say, hey, nobody respected me in life. I would love for someone to respect me in death, which is just a cue to say, hey, you should put the flower on this guy's grave. But if you shimmy up to it just the right way, you can skip talking to him the first time. Doesn't save a whole lot of time, but, you know, still cool. Cool to hit it in a run. Anyway, after we talk to him, he tells us that his master took a bountiful treasure and escaped somewhere underground with it, which translates to the sewers. So we're going to go back into the sewers, and we're going to go ahead and go find where his master went to, and we're going to get that treasure. Now, it is worth noting that there is a very difficult skip in this room here that we're not going for. It is very, very not marathon safe. Normally, if you walk over that skeleton that was laying on the ground there, and you have the Ring of the Dead equipped, Lucas will talk to you. There is a way to not have to switch equipment like I just did. But you have to, like, make sure his skeleton is off screen and not fall in the water, and it's quite tricky. Excuse me? Okay, that was weird. Whatever. Anyway, here's the guy with the treasure, the aforementioned treasure. And then, fun little fact, there was a 6-second time save found like last week, and we are going to implement it right now. Basically, for the longest time, we thought that you had to unequip the Ring of the Dead after the end of this little, what I like to call the ghost tour. But as it turns out, you can keep it equipped, because using one item overwrites the effect of the Ring of the Dead, where you can't talk to living people. And we didn't really know that until, like, a week ago. So that's fun. Anyway, there's Caitlin and the grandfather again. Her spirit is now at rest. He thanks us and gives us what is called the Stone of Thirst, which is also the object that we're going to be using that incantation for that we got earlier. Then we're going to go upstairs and back into the town, and we're going to go to the merchant. And we're going to trade the treasure we got with the merchant for a violin. One of the songs that the troubadour sings talks about how the dungeon keeper plays violin. And his violin was chipped, and basically he had to sell it or something. I'm not really sure of the details. Either way, we are going to buy a violin, and we're going to get it to the dungeon keeper, which is going to allow us to free Agar from prison. But yeah, for a long time, it was thought that you had to unequip the Ring of the Dead for this sequence. You don't. Because using one item sort of overwrites the effect that it has. So he asks if we want the violin without strings or the chipped violin. We want the chipped violin. The game does not soft lock you there either. And there is a third violin option as well. If you have the wrong violin, he will let you exchange them. Like I said, this little jaunt around town is the longest sort of section of the game. After this, we're going to be bum rushing the last two dungeons and finishing up quite quickly. So coming through here, we're going to put the violin on this table. We're going to hear the dungeon keeper coming upstairs, and we got to run and hide. Oh no! You just hide behind this partition here. And the dungeon keeper sees the violin, and for some reason doesn't think it's fishy, and is like, oh, I'm going to play this violin. And that allows us to go past grab the key to the dungeon, and then down into the actual dungeon we go, the very first area of the game. We're going to open this up, run straight up to Mr. Agar here, and use the orb. Pretty cool little sound bite here. Good stuff. Anyway, after that, we have to relock the dungeon so that the dungeon keeper is trapped inside. And then we're going to meet Agar and his sister at the Rusty Sword Inn. And Agar is going to give us access to his house. Agar's house has 3 extremely important objects for the run. The game cannot be beaten without any of them. So, coming in here, Agar and his sister thank us for, you know, freeing him from jail. And this gives us access to Agar's house in the sorcerer quarter of town. So we're going to head there now. And grab the few things inside that we need. And at this point, we're pretty much going to be just going straight to the 3rd dungeon and then straight from the 3rd dungeon to the 4th dungeon. Yep, Brando is correct. Everything we have done in town, basically, was to just unlock this house. All the going into the sewers, talking to all the ghosts, and this, all of it was just to go in here. This door's locked until that whole sequence of events is done. So we need 3 objects in here. The first one is the flint. Second is this over here. Pretty easy item to miss, Dragon Fang. And then last is an item that casually is pretty easy to miss because of its location. And it is this bedpost, which is actually a lever for a machine. I always go the wrong way when I come out of that door there. Tell as old as time. The hitbox on that little corner there is also very jank. If you notice there, I got stuck on it for a moment. Anyway, then we're going to go into this area, the 2nd excavation site. Climb down this ladder. And we're going to go into the water room. And we're going to use that item that we got from the Grandpa Ghost, the Stone of Thirst. Speak the incantation. And it drains the water. And what I find interesting is we're draining the water so we can go up this other ladder over here, turn some valves, and drain some water. You have to wonder why you can't just use the Stone of Thirst to drain the other water. But, you know, what do I know? Oop. I have some notes for this. I often get lefts and rights mixed up in my head. So forgive my slight slowness there. So, Lackmere pops up. And tells us, oh, you put the lever on the machine, but tell me, will you pull the lever? And to quote Emperor's New Groove, pull the lever! Pull it! Boop. There we go. Sick. And this drains the water, and a little detail that I like to point out is you'll notice that there was a skeleton there on screen. That is the body of Caitlin, the little girl whose spirit we put to rest. This just washes her body away. Just floods it down the drain, which is like cool. It's at you know, between theft, literally trapping people in a dungeon, breaking prisoners out of jail, and now we can add grave desecration to the list. We're going to be adding arson to our list later as well of crimes we've committed during Shadowgate 64. Anyhow, draining that water gives us access to the third dungeon, probably the hardest dungeon as well, especially casually. From a speedrunning perspective, it's really not that bad. There is one section of it that's very difficult that I will be making a safety save for. It's quite easy to die during it. And again, if you fall off the edges of this ravine, you die. So, you know, we're going to be turning a little bit safely. Usually I would just immediately start moving as soon as I come out of some of these loading zones, but marathon run, be a little safe. And we're going to come over here. And down into the third dungeon we go, the Tower of Trials. This is sort of the spooky dungeon, if you will. It's got a bit of a creepy vibe to it. The whole dungeon starts off with a secret door here that we have to go through. There's a switch on the bottom of this painting. Oops. And it starts off with kind of a very odd puzzle. Not an odd puzzle, but just it's unusual for this game. It's the only thing like this in the whole game. Where we have to make the correct coat of arms. The coat of arms is plastered all over the walls earlier in the dungeon. But, you know, we have the solution memorized. Because speedrun. And bam. So, here's the next section of RNG. This is the Demon Wall. The Demon Wall is going to ask us 5 questions. The last isn't RNG, but the first 4 are. Who has forever been known as the Good Master? That is Lakmir. I don't remember the exact amount of different questions this guy can ask. It's more than 10 different things. And it's just questions about the lore. What is Lord Jair's homeland? That is Westland. That is Aristolan. Fourth question, and then the final one, like I said, is not RNG. Green ring. And then the final question, which is always the same. And the answer is Nathor Dreslin. Bam bam. We're going to drop a safety save here. So this next area actually reverses your controls. So down becomes up becomes down, left becomes right, etc., etc. You can obviously go a little bit quicker, but if you notice there's like these spinning blades, and if you walk into them, you die. So we're going to be taking it a tad safe. Because, you know, marathon, we don't want to die and have to reboot our save. And we made it through. Most excellent. I would say more than half of the items in this game are red herrings, honestly. So we're going to come over here to this candle. We're going to use the flint that we got in Agar's house to light this candle. And then we have to solve a bit of a maze kind of puzzle before the candle burns out. And honestly, this isn't near as hard as it looks like it is. It's kind of a linear maze, so to speak. Not exactly, but it might as well be. But anyway, the goal in this maze is to find these little protrusions with buttons and push the buttons. and you'll notice the candle icon on the top right corner of the screen. It will eventually change the way it looks as it slowly melts. And if it finishes melting before we are done, we actually get warped back to the entrance of the maze and have to start over. Which is, that's not something we need to be concerned about during this, but, you know, just to explain how it works. You'll notice that sometimes I look down or up slightly, and the reason for that is because when you interact with an object, the screen will scroll slightly to kind of initiate the animation for however you would interact with it. And I'm actually making sure to be facing in such a way that there's less screen scroll. Which is a very strange, kind of abstract time save for a game, for sure. We are just about done with this section, and actually, oops, and by extension, just about done with Dungeon 3. Whoa. What? I don't know what just happened there. That was strange. No big deal. Okay. Going up the stairs. And we put the candle in this candelabra. So that is the completion of the maze, which is honestly kind of the bulk of this dungeon. And a fun little puzzle here. You have to pick the correct mirror and then walk into it backwards. It is the mirror all the way to the left. And this gives you one of the main MacGuffins of the game, if you will, the Ring of the Kingdom, which we are going to equip immediately. And we're going to walk onto this little teleporter here, and this teleports us back to the beginning of the dungeon. Fun fact, every other dungeon has a very quick way to leave it. For some reason, the second dungeon does not, which I've always found mildly interesting. Anyway, from here, we're going straight to the 4th dungeon. And we're getting pretty close to the end of the game. The final dungeon is very, very, very short compared to everything else in the game. I'm not sure if it was crunch time and the devs just threw something together, if they were just out of ideas or what, but the 4th dungeon is extremely short and kind of a non-event. Honestly, as a whole, it's very just like, oh, that's it. Like, the whole thing's like less than like 3 or 4 minutes. If that, even. But before we go to the 4th dungeon, we have one final pit stop to make. In the 1st dungeon, there was a locked door that I never really showed on screen at any point, that you can't open until you have the Ring of the Kingdom, and there is an object in there that we need to open the 4th dungeon. It's basically the key for it. It's not exactly a key. It's actually the dragon flute horn. It calls it a flute, but it looks like a horn. It sounds like a horn. So we're gonna go with horn. Sounds like a vuvuzela, honestly. Excuse me. All right. Now that we have the dragon flute, we can go open the 4th dungeon, which is the Tower of Dragons. And it is the final dungeon. So we are rapidly approaching the end of the run here. I pointed this out a little while back, but that's basically Lady Gaga's poker face, you know? Whoa, except for the last note's just incorrect. It's always bugged me. Anyway, this is the 4th dungeon, Tower Dragons. Very short, extremely linear. There's like literally 1 puzzle in it. Technically 2, but one of them's not even required to beat the game. So, you know, that's kind of lame. But, oh well. You can cut these corners a lot more, but if you fall off the edge, you die. So, you know, marathon run. We're going to play it safe and make sure we don't do that. Anyway, one of the 2 objects we got to pick up while we're in this dungeon is this here, the Dragon Gem. Oh, I guess there's technically 3 puzzles in this dungeon. Although this first one's not really a puzzle. We just used the Dragon Fang, which we found way, you know, a little bit earlier in Agar's house on this sort of a mural on the wall. And it completes the mural, of course. Which creates us a staircase. And this is the bulk of the dungeon right here. Just walking up this spiral, pretty much. There's one more little puzzle at the end. And then we're in the end game officially. So coming into here, there's actually a puzzle, kind of a puzzle in here where you restring a lute that belongs to this dude. Excuse me? So this puzzle's quite simple. Just pick the correct wing on each dragon to create the full melody, the full dragon melody. Naturally, we have it memorized. And that's the 4th dungeon. Seriously, that's it. We're already done with it. Very short. We're going to go upstairs, and you're going to see, oh, there's a whole dragon laying there. It's like, look at that. That's one scaly boy. Anyway, Crackmere's going to pop up one more time, tell us some exposition. And we're going to go get the staff that is in this dragon's head, and we're not going to pull it up out of the top of its head. We're going to just rip it through the front of its face, because, you know, that's real kosher. And the dragon's going to come to life, and we're actually going to get a cutscene where we see our character, one of the very few in the game. So we fly back into town, and at this point we have all the MacGuffins we need to confront the final villain. Or, you know, not the final villain, but, well, yeah, both, really. But first we gotta distract the guards so that we can get into the inner chamber where the villain is. And in order to do that, we're gonna do an arson. So, you know, add that to the list of illegal things we have done. During the course of this run. Alright, then coming up here is what I like to call the final boss. If you walk too close to this guy, he'll push you away, and you'll lose like 10 seconds. We need to walk up to him just close enough to use an item, but not so close that he, we trigger him, and we got it. We're good. I've literally lost world record pace runs to this guy before. Like 2 minutes from the end of the game. Always a lovely time. So anyway, we hand him the pendant, and it makes him feel guilty about some bad things he did. And so he moves, and we go into the inner sanctum. And coming up is some of the best sound design on the entire Nintendo 64 console. And as such, once we start to approach it, I'm going to shut up so y'all can hear it, because it's truly a good meme. We're going to use the dragon eye on this staff. And then the game enters a bit of a scripted scene here. For some reason, the villains in this game don't really, you know, the Dungeon Keeper and the main villain don't really think much about things that they find laying around. Like, he comes out and he's like, oh, my magic staff is complete. I don't care how it got complete. I'm going to use it to do warlock magic. It's like, my dude. Like, you're not even going to question how your staff got finished. Like, all right, here we go. Best sound on the 64. Great stuff. Great stuff indeed. I like his laugh sound that's coming up here in a moment too. You can tell it's just like the same repeated audio file over and over. So, needless to say, his magic spell did not go well. And instead of becoming an all-powerful warlock himself, he accidentally freed Voldemort. So, we're gonna go take care of that. Which is, you know, quote-unquote, the true final boss, I suppose. Alright, this is the last appearance of Lackmere, and we are getting very close to the end of the run. Very, very close. So, here's the last room of the game. We come in here, you can see, you know, ooh, spooky Warlock Lord. He's on the ceiling, and he's floating around and stuff. I guess he's not on the ceiling, he's just looming over everything. Anyway, we come to this statue, we use the Staff of Ages, and we put it in the hand of the statue. Then we use the Ring of the Kingdom, and we put it in the hand. And then after that, as soon as I dismiss this text box, the run's over. So run is over in 3, 2, 1, done. And that's Shadowgate 64. Yeah, very chill game. If you want a speedrun that's not quite as intensive in terms of like mechanics and movement, this is definitely a good one. If you like this sort of point-and-click style games, it's a pretty good one. I mean, there's no pointing and clicking, but it has a similar sort of, you know, gameplay loop as one of those kinds of games. But yeah, that's Shadowgate 64. I'm going to be with you guys for the next, a little over an hour or so. Coming up next, I'm going to be doing Chameleon Twist 100% US. And, yeah. I guess I'll just turn it over to the Marathon staff, and they can welcome to cut my feed whenever, so that I can get set up for the next run. And yeah, stay tuned for more Retrothon and more Kefka. Thanks for the GGs, guys.